The world of ancient maps is a quiet, almost forgotten realm, a space where the imagination of past generations whispers across centuries. These maps are more than mere lines on parchment. They are reflections of human curiosity, encoded stories of journeys taken, of lands imagined, and of knowledge painstakingly gathered. When we look at them, we are invited to see the world through the eyes of those who came long before us, to feel the awe and uncertainty they must have felt when faced with vast oceans, uncharted forests, and distant horizons that vanished into the mist. The careful strokes of ink, the intricate illustrations of mountains, rivers, and coastlines speak not only of geography, but of the very heartbeat of human exploration. They reveal the delicate balance between observation and imagination, between what could be measured and what could only be dreamed. There is a particular quiet fascination in noticing the contrasts within these maps. Some regions are drawn with meticulous detail, precise coastlines and settlements etched with care, while other areas dissolve into mystery, filled with mythical creatures, unverified lands, or vast empty spaces that seem to pulse with possibility. These spaces evoke a sense of wonder, a gentle reminder that the world, once, was far larger and stranger than we can ever fully comprehend. It is in this contrast, between the known and the unknown, the charted and the imagined, that the true magic of ancient maps lies. They are documents of fact and imagination, of ambition and caution, blending science with poetry, guiding travelers across both water and time. The texture of the parchment itself, worn and slightly fragile after centuries, adds another layer of quiet intimacy. Holding or even imagining such a map feels like connecting with a long-departed mind, a person who lived in a world simultaneously familiar and mysterious. The symbols, often small and intricate, carry hidden meanings, directions, warnings, sacred places, perhaps even secret knowledge meant only for a select few. As one traces the paths and contours with the eyes, there is a meditative rhythm to the act, a gentle pull into history and human ingenuity. The maps are not aggressive in their revelation. They do not demand immediate understanding. Instead, they allow the mind to wander slowly, to drift between certainty and doubt, between what is known and what remains veiled. Even in the vastness of the open oceans or the endless stretches of imagined continents, there is a calmness in these maps. They are the quiet companions of dreamers, explorers, and scholars alike. They speak of journeys that were taken, of places that may never have existed, and of knowledge that was preserved or deliberately hidden. In their lines and curves, one can feel both the weight of centuries and the lightness of human imagination. As night falls and the world outside grows still, these maps become portals into a time when the edges of the earth were unknown, when every voyage was a leap into mystery, and when the simple act of drawing the world was a way of conversing with the cosmos itself. To gaze upon an ancient map is to feel the whisper of past explorers, to sense their hopes and fears, their triumphs and mistakes, all folded into delicate ink and parchment. It is a quiet meditation on the desire to understand, to reach beyond the familiar, and to leave a trace of one's knowledge for the generations that would follow. And so, as the mind traces these ancient lines and shadows, it begins to float in a calm contemplation of the unknown, settling gently into the rhythm of history, discovery, and quiet wonder. Here, in this timeless space, the stage is set for a journey through maps, hidden knowledge, and the enduring mysteries of the world, inviting the mind to drift, to explore, and to dream. Long before the age of mighty ships and daring explorers, the first maps were born not on paper, but upon stone, clay, and the walls of dark caves. Humanity's earliest attempts to chart the world were humble, yet profound, reflecting a deep desire to understand one's place within the vast, unfolding tapestry of the earth. These primitive maps were not about precision in the modern sense. They were stories, guides, and memories etched with care. Each line, each symbol, was a bridge between the known and the unknown, a quiet expression of the human urge to find order in a world that often seemed wild and unpredictable. From the scratches in the soil to the painted outlines of rivers and mountains on cave walls, these early depictions reveal that even our distant ancestors felt the pull of the world beyond their immediate vision, a pull that continues to echo across centuries. As human societies grew, so too did the sophistication of their maps. The earliest civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, developed cartographic practices that reflected both practicality and spirituality. Maps became tools of survival, showing paths to water, marking fertile land, and guiding travelers across deserts and plains. Yet these maps were also imbued with meaning beyond utility. They incorporated the heavens, weaving the positions of stars and constellations into earthly journeys. In many early cultures, celestial charts were intertwined with myths and religious practices, creating a delicate balance between observation and imagination. In Egypt, for example, the alignment of sacred structures with the stars suggests a profound awareness of both geography and the cosmos, a blending of science and wonder that would echo throughout centuries of cartographic history. The invention of writing allowed maps to become more than fleeting marks. They became records, documents that could be shared, interpreted, and preserved. The Babylonians, with their intricate clay tablets, recorded not only the outlines of cities and rivers, but also the relationships between lands and the divine. Their maps were often circular, representing the world as a disk surrounded by the waters of creation, reminding us that the earliest cartographers were not merely observers. They were storytellers, shaping perception as much as recording it. In these early representations, one can see the contrast between the tangible and the mythical, the precise and the symbolic, a duality that would persist in map-making for millennia. Meanwhile, in the far reaches of Asia, scholars and travelers were charting routes along rivers and mountains, blending local knowledge with celestial observations. Chinese maps, some of which survive in fragments to this day, reveal an astonishing attention to scale, orientation, and topography. They often included details of settlements, roads, and natural landmarks, but also incorporated cosmological concepts, showing a universe in which land, sky, and human activity were intertwined. These maps were not static. They were living documents, revised and redrawn as new knowledge was gained, a testament to humanity's ever-growing curiosity and ingenuity. One of the most fascinating aspects of these early maps is how they merge observation with imagination. In a time when much of the world was unknown, cartographers often filled blank spaces with fantastical creatures, distant lands, or symbolic illustrations meant to convey fear, respect, or wonder. A map could show a real river, yet beside it dwell dragons, giants, or spirits believed to inhabit remote forests and mountains. This blending of reality and myth was not merely decorative. It reflected the way humans perceive their world, acknowledging the limits of their knowledge, while giving shape to the mysteries that lay beyond sight. These early depictions remind us that cartography has always been a delicate dance between fact and imagination, a bridge connecting tangible experience with the unknown. The human fascination with the heavens also played a crucial role in the evolution of maps. Star charts and early astronomical diagrams were among the first attempts to create a coordinate system, to bring order to vast expanses beyond immediate perception. Observers across civilizations noted the movements of planets, the positions of stars, and the changing patterns of the moon, weaving these into guides for navigation and agriculture. These celestial charts, often beautiful in their symmetry and intricacy, reveal a profound understanding of patterns and cycles, a quiet acknowledgement that the earth and the heavens are part of a single, interconnected system. They were the precursors to later navigational maps, where knowledge of the stars could guide travelers across oceans, linking ancient curiosity to the daring explorations of future centuries. Even as maps became more sophisticated, they retained an element of poetry. The cartographers of ancient Greece, for example, sought to combine geometry, observation, and philosophical reasoning, producing maps that were as much about understanding the nature of the world as about depicting its physical features. Figures like Anaximander and Ptolemy attempted to measure distances, calculate the Earth's circumference, and propose the relative positions of continents, blending empirical study with speculation. Their work demonstrates a persistent tension between certainty and mystery, a reminder that every map is not only a record of the known, but also a meditation on the unknown, a quiet conversation with time, space, and imagination. As civilizations continued to grow and interact through trade, migration, and conquest, the exchange of geographic knowledge became increasingly important. Maps traveled alongside merchants and diplomats, carrying with them glimpses of foreign lands, unfamiliar customs, and hidden routes. In this way, maps became repositories of collective human knowledge, quietly preserving the wisdom, errors, and speculations of countless minds. They tell stories not only of land and sea, but of ambition, fear, curiosity, and the subtle interplay between observation and imagination. Each map is in essence a dialogue across time, a reflection of what was known, what was guessed, and what remained shrouded in mystery. In this earliest age of cartography, one senses a calm patience, a quiet persistence, and a gentle reverence for the unknown. Each map is an invitation to look beyond the present, to contemplate the vastness of the earth and sky, and to recognize the continuity of human curiosity across generations. These early works teach us that maps are more than navigation tools. They are meditative devices, portals into the minds of those who sought to understand a world larger than themselves. They are reminders that discovery is both practical and poetic, scientific and mystical, rooted in observation, yet always reaching toward what lies beyond. To immerse oneself in the origins of cartography is to enter a slow, contemplative rhythm, tracing the curves of rivers, the shapes of mountains, and the imaginary lines of distant horizons. It is a gentle journey through human thought, imagination, and the timeless desire to know the unknown. Each line drawn by an early mapmaker is a whisper across centuries, inviting the mind to drift, to wonder, and to follow the quiet pulse of exploration that has always guided humanity. In these earliest maps, the stage is quietly set for the stories of explorers, the mysteries of hidden knowledge, and the journeys that will unfold across the centuries, leading ever outward into the unknown. In the quiet world of early cartography, maps were not merely functional. They were deliberate creations, imbued with intention, secrecy, and sometimes hidden messages. The lines and symbols on a map were more than representations of rivers, mountains, or coastlines. They were part of a language, a code that only a careful observer could begin to interpret. Some maps were designed to be practical guides for travelers and navigators, yet many carried layers of meaning that were never meant to be fully understood by everyone. The secrets within these maps could indicate hidden trade routes, forbidden territories, sacred sites, or even political boundaries that were intentionally obscured. In this delicate balance between revelation and concealment, maps became as much about what was hidden as what was revealed, quietly hinting at knowledge that could shape power, survival, and understanding. One of the most fascinating aspects of these early creations is the use of symbols and coded imagery. Consider, for example, the maps of medieval Europe, where towns, forests, rivers, and coastlines are represented with meticulous care, but spaces in between are filled with fantastical beasts, allegorical figures, or cryptic signs. These additions were not mere decoration. They carried meaning. Dragons, serpents, and other creatures often marked dangerous or unknown regions, warning travelers of perils both real and imagined. Likewise, abstract symbols, unusual lettering, and marginal annotations could encode knowledge only interpretable by those with the proper education or initiation. Each map becomes a layered document, a practical guide, a work of art, and a repository of hidden knowledge, challenging the observer to look carefully, to read between the lines, and to wonder at the wisdom that might be concealed. Some maps are particularly striking because they juxtapose the precise with the mysterious. The Pyrie Reis map, for instance, crafted in the early 16th century, shows coastlines with remarkable accuracy, yet it also contains details that continue to puzzle historians and scholars. Similarly, medieval nautical charts, or port-Oland maps, meticulously traced harbors, bays, and currents, but left blank spaces dotted with question marks, sea monsters, or even imaginary islands. These juxtapositions reveal a subtle tension: the human desire to measure, to record, and to know, contrasted with the humility and awe in the face of the unknown. The mapmaker, in these moments, becomes both a scientist and a poet, documenting reality while acknowledging that the world is far larger, stranger, and more mysterious than ink on parchment could ever capture. The intention behind these hidden symbols was sometimes practical and sometimes deeply secretive. Royal or monastic maps could contain information that was considered dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. Knowledge of trade routes, mineral-rich regions, or strategic passages was carefully guarded, communicated only to those deemed trustworthy. In other cases, the maps encoded spiritual or mystical beliefs. Alchemical symbols, sacred geometry, or astrological references might be subtly woven into the design, hinting at a connection between the earthly and the divine. To read such a map fully required more than observation. It demanded understanding, intuition, and the willingness to perceive the unseen threads connecting the world around us. Even the choice of scale, orientation, and perspective could carry hidden meaning. Maps were often drawn with east at the top, or aligned with sacred sites rather than true north, reflecting the worldview of their creators rather than purely geographic reality. Mountains could symbolize both physical obstacles and spiritual journeys. Rivers might mark not only paths of trade, but also channels of life and energy. These maps invite the mind to wander beyond the literal, to consider what each line, each curve, might signify beyond its apparent function. They encourage quiet reflection, a slow unfolding of understanding, where the act of observing becomes almost meditative. The mystery deepens when one considers maps like the Mappa Mundi, the vast medieval representation of the known world. In its sprawling design, reality blends seamlessly with myth. Cities, rivers, and continents are charted alongside legendary lands, biblical narratives, and allegorical figures. To modern eyes, the map can seem chaotic or fantastical. Yet to its contemporary observers, it was a sophisticated synthesis of knowledge and imagination. Every element had purpose, whether to instruct, to warn, or to inspire contemplation. The Mappa Mundi and other similar works remind us that maps are not merely visual representations. They are conversations across time, messages encoded for those who are willing to look closely, to think deeply, and to explore the layers of meaning hidden within. This layer of secrecy extends beyond Europe. In Asia, maps often incorporated hidden wisdom in subtle ways. Chinese and Japanese cartographers might include references to spiritual journeys, sacred mountains, or geomantic principles within the depiction of landscapes. These maps guided travelers not only across physical terrain, but through metaphysical understanding, blending practical navigation with philosophical reflection. Likewise, Islamic cartography often combined geographic knowledge with astronomical insight, conveying a sense of the cosmos as a harmonious and ordered system, while subtly encoding scholarly knowledge accessible only to the learned. Across continents, cultures, and centuries, maps were more than tools. They were repositories of wisdom, artistry, and mystery. The hidden knowledge in maps also sparked curiosity, debate, and even controversy. Scholars have long puzzled over anomalous details, discrepancies, and symbols whose meanings remain elusive. Were these deliberate codes? Were they the result of incomplete information or imaginative interpretation? Perhaps some maps drew from oral knowledge, personal observation, or even long-lost sources now forgotten. The unanswered questions surrounding these documents invite the mind to wander slowly, to embrace the uncertainty, and to recognize that mystery itself is part of the mapmaker's intent. The very gaps and enigmas become portals, leading the viewer into a gentle meditation on exploration, knowledge, and the human desire to uncover what is hidden. To study these maps is to engage in a quiet dialogue with the past. One traces the lines and symbols, pauses over curious markings, and imagines the hands that drew them, the eyes that consulted them, and the journeys that followed their guidance. There is a subtle rhythm to this exploration, a balance between observation and imagination, between fact and legend, between what is revealed and what is kept secret. Each map is a carefully constructed world, simultaneously familiar and alien, offering a sense of order while preserving the allure of the unknown. As night settles and the mind begins to drift, these maps serve as gentle companions, guiding thought along quiet paths of curiosity and wonder. They remind us that knowledge is rarely complete, that mystery persists even in the most carefully measured spaces, and that the act of seeking, of tracing, of interpreting is as important as the answers themselves. In the hidden symbols, coded signs, and subtle secrets of ancient maps, we glimpse the timeless human desire to explore, understand, and connect with the world beyond immediate perception. In these early cartographic creations, the known and the unknown coexist in delicate harmony. The precise lines of rivers and coastlines meet the imaginative flourishes of distant lands. Measured distances coexist with enigmatic symbols. The practical and the poetic merge into a single, quiet meditation. The maps themselves become invitations, soft, unhurried invitations, to consider not only what we can know, but also what remains beyond our grasp, waiting to be discovered, interpreted, or simply contemplated. In this interplay of revelation and secrecy, the mind finds a gentle rhythm, a calm immersion into a world where knowledge and mystery walk side by side, where exploration is not only a journey across land or sea, but a journey inward in a thought, imagination, and quiet wonder. Long before the age of modern satellites and precise surveys, there existed in the minds of explorers and mapmakers the idea of lands that may or may not exist. Phantom continents, lost islands, and distant realms whispered into existence by imagination, rumor, and fleeting reports from travelers. These lost lands were often depicted on maps with the same care as places that could be visited and measured, their contours traced with ink and curiosity alike. To look at these maps is to step into a world where the known edges of reality blend seamlessly with the unknown, where the familiar coasts of Europe and Asia slowly dissolve into uncharted waters that invite speculation, wonder, and gentle fear. The allure of these phantom lands lies not only in their mystery, but in what they reveal about the human imagination, a reminder that exploration is as much about the mind as it is about the body. Legends of lost continents, such as Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu, have captivated imaginations for centuries. Atlantis, first described by Plato, is said to have vanished beneath the waves, a civilization of incredible knowledge and beauty swallowed by the ocean in a single catastrophic night. For centuries, explorers and mapmakers included hints of its possible location on their charts, leaving blank spaces dotted with speculation, sometimes framed by poetic inscriptions. Lemuria, a theoretical land proposed to explain geological and zoological mysteries, appears on some 19th century maps as a vast expanse bridging continents that we now understand as separate. Phantom islands in the Pacific and Atlantic, some appearing on maps for decades, then vanishing without a trace, remind us of the fragile, uncertain nature of knowledge in a pre-modern world. These lands exist in that quiet space between fact and imagination, a place where curiosity floats freely over the vast, uncharted waters. The depiction of these lost lands was never careless. Often, they were drawn based on traveler accounts, hearsay, or fragments of ancient knowledge preserved in scrolls and oral traditions. Cartographers sought to reconcile these stories with empirical observation, attempting to map the impossible with the tools at hand. Rivers, mountains, and forests might be carefully traced, yet the surrounding areas would dissolve into clouds, waves, or mysterious symbols suggesting the unknown. The blank spaces themselves become invitations to the mind, gentle prompts to imagine what lies beyond the edge of perception. In this way, maps functioned not only as guides, but as quiet portals into imagination, encouraging viewers to ponder possibilities rather than merely measure distances. There's a special poetry in the way explorers themselves responded to these phantom lands. Many sailors ventured into unknown seas in search of rumored islands, guided by faint accounts, fleeting sightings, or maps that hinted at possibilities. Some islands were reported multiple times and then disappeared, swallowed perhaps by storms, tides, or misidentification. Others were entirely figments of human hope, desire, or error, appearing in the margins of maps to remind travelers that the world is at once knowable and infinitely mysterious. These journeys were slow, contemplative, and often dangerous, yet they were fueled by a quiet, enduring curiosity. The mapmaker's lines and the sailor's logs echo one another across centuries, each reinforcing the allure of the unknown. The concept of lost lands also reflects the human tendency to fill gaps in knowledge with stories, symbols, and mythology. Maps might include islands inhabited by strange peoples, continents where the sun never sets, or lands rich with treasure and wisdom. In medieval European maps, distant islands were sometimes illustrated with figures carrying exotic goods or performing strange rituals, a subtle blend of curiosity, fear, and imagination. These images were not meant to mislead, but to convey the emotional landscape of exploration, the hopes, anxieties, and wonders experienced by those who dared to journey beyond the familiar. Such depictions remind us that maps have always been as much about human perception as about physical reality, a quiet meditation on what it means to explore. In the age of early modern exploration, the tension between known lands and phantom territories became particularly vivid. Maps of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans often included islands reported by sailors but never verified, reflecting the difficulties of long-distance navigation. These islands were sometimes charted with care, given names, and even surrounded with coordinates, only to vanish in subsequent surveys. The discrepancies between observation and expectation created a subtle drama on the page, a gentle, almost hypnotic narrative of pursuit and disappearance. For the viewer or reader, tracing these phantom islands offers a meditative experience, a slow exploration of human hope, imagination, and the ongoing dialogue between reality and perception. Yet these lost lands are not only the product of imagination. They also reflect the limitations of knowledge and the challenges of observation in the natural world. Storms could obscure coastlines, fog could hide islands, and errors in calculation could place lands hundreds of miles from their true location. Maps thus become records of both reality and human error, preserving not only what was discovered, but also what was imagined or misunderstood. In the quiet examination of these maps, one senses a gentle rhythm of trial and error, curiosity and wonder, patience and reflection, a rhythm that mirrors the human mind itself, always reaching for understanding while acknowledging the vastness of the unknown. The lost lands also serve as metaphors for the broader pursuit of knowledge. They are reminders that discovery is rarely complete, that the world contains hidden corners, mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and truths that may forever elude comprehension. By leaving spaces empty, by marking uncertainty with symbols and legends, mapmakers invite contemplation rather than immediate answers. In this sense, phantom continents and disappearing islands become meditative tools, encouraging slow, thoughtful engagement with the unknown. They remind us that exploration is not only a matter of reaching new places, but also of stretching the mind, opening it to possibility, and learning to live with questions that may never be fully resolved. In the soft light of reflection, these phantom lands evoke a calm curiosity. The mind can wander along their coastlines, imagine the forests, rivers, and mountains that might exist there, and sense the gentle thrill of mystery without urgency or alarm. The very ambiguity of these places allows for a quiet meditation, a drifting through centuries of human thought, hope, and imagination. As night falls and the world becomes still, one can almost hear the faint echo of explorers' footsteps, the rustle of maps being unrolled on ship decks, and the whisper of winds carrying travelers toward the unknown. Lost lands become companions for contemplation, inviting the mind to wander across waters both real and imagined, tracing the lines between history and myth. To study these lost continents and phantom islands is to embrace the delicate balance between what is known and what remains uncertain. The maps preserve the desire to discover, the courage to venture into the unfamiliar, and the persistent human habit of imagining what cannot yet be seen. Each erased coastline, each vanished island, and each mystical annotation speaks of curiosity, imagination, and the enduring allure of mystery. In this quiet exploration of the unknown, the mind drifts gently, finding calm in the rhythm of observation, speculation, and wonder. In the spaces between reality and imagination, the story of exploration continues, inviting the dreamer to follow the quiet, winding paths across seas that may exist only in ink and thought, yet shimmer vividly in the human mind. Beyond the lines and symbols of maps, beyond the inked coastlines and imagined islands, there are the explorers themselves, individuals drawn by a quiet, persistent call to venture into the unknown. These were men and women who, guided by curiosity, ambition, or necessity, set sail into waters that had never been charted and stepped onto lands that had never been recorded. Their journeys were not merely physical, but deeply contemplative, each step and each observation a meditation on the vastness of the world and the limits of human understanding. In their determination, one sees both courage and humility, courage to face storms, treacherous currents, and the unknown, humility in acknowledging that the world, despite every effort, would always remain partly mysterious. Many of these explorers were guided by maps that were themselves works of imagination as much as science. The careful lines of coastlines, the sketches of rivers and mountains, and the mysterious notations marking unverified territories all shaped their voyages, providing a tentative framework within which they moved cautiously yet with wonder. For every accurate measurement, there might be an error, a phantom island, or a coastline that existed only in rumor. These discrepancies did not deter them. Rather, they fueled a quiet fascination, a persistent engagement with the unknown. The tension between expectation and reality became part of the rhythm of exploration, a gentle, unfolding narrative that stretched across months, years, or even decades. The motivations of these travelers were as varied as the seas they crossed. Some sought wealth, trade, or political advantage, while others were driven by curiosity, the desire to map the world and to understand the patterns hidden within it. Still others were motivated by personal devotion, spiritual quests, or the hope of finding lands of great beauty or sacred significance. Despite these differences, all shared a common trait, a willingness to step beyond the comfort of the known, to embrace uncertainty, and to follow the faint lines of maps into spaces unclaimed and uncertain. This willingness reflects a deep human truth, a quiet reminder that progress, discovery, and understanding often demand patience, observation, and courage. As they journeyed, these explorers encountered the immense unpredictability of the natural world. Ocean currents could carry ships far off course. Sudden storms could obscure the horizon, and fog could hide islands that lay just beyond reach. Mountains, rivers, and deserts challenged their progress, while unfamiliar flora and fauna inspired both awe and caution. Every day was a negotiation between human intention and the forces of nature, a slow, measured dialogue that required careful observation, adaptation, and reflection. Yet in this negotiation, there was beauty, a rhythm to the movement across space, a gentle unfolding of experience that was both practical and poetic. The human stories behind these voyages are as compelling as the maps themselves. Some explorers vanished without a trace, their ships lost to the sea, leaving only rumors and fragmented records to hint at their journeys. Others returned with tales that seemed fantastical, describing lands, peoples, and phenomena that challenged contemporary understanding. These stories, often written in journals or letters, offer glimpses into the minds of those who ventured far from the familiar. They speak not only of navigation and geography, but of emotion. The quiet wonder of a sunrise over uncharted waters, the fear of storms that threaten life, and the humility of realizing how small and fragile one is in the vast expanse of the world. Explorers relied on a combination of observation, skill, and the knowledge embedded in the maps they carried. The compass, astrolabe, sextant, and other instruments allowed them to translate celestial movements into positions on Earth, yet even the most precise tools could not eliminate uncertainty. Every voyage was an exercise in patience, calculation, and adaptation, a slow accumulation of knowledge that gradually transformed the unknown into the known. And yet, no matter how precise their measurements, some mystery always remained, a reminder that human understanding is never absolute, that the edges of the map are always edges of imagination as well. The contrast between the known and the unknown defined the very essence of exploration. Safe harbors, familiar landmarks, and documented trade routes were juxtaposed with uncharted seas, rumors of islands, and the possibility of encounters with unknown peoples. This interplay of certainty and uncertainty shaped the pace and mindset of every journey. Explorers had to navigate not only waters and terrain, but also the delicate balance between confidence in their tools and maps and the humility to respect what they could not yet know. In this tension lies the quiet poetry of early exploration, a rhythm of careful planning, observation, and wonder that unfolds over time, allowing the mind to drift alongside the ship across distant horizons. It is also worth noting that many explorers were acutely aware of the human element in their journeys. Encounters with indigenous peoples could be both enlightening and perilous, teaching travelers about local knowledge, resources, and ways of life, while also demanding caution and respect. These interactions often influenced the maps that were later created, introducing new information, new symbols, and sometimes subtle inaccuracies reflecting misunderstandings or cultural interpretation. The maps became living documents, carrying the echoes of both observation and human imagination, a quiet testament to the interconnectedness of knowledge, curiosity, and empathy. The voyages of these early explorers were slow, meditative processes, punctuated by long stretches of observation, reflection, and anticipation. Nights at sea were often still, with only the gentle rocking of the ship and the distant stars for company. During these hours, sailors would trace the constellations, measure the positions of celestial bodies, and reflect on the journey ahead. These moments of quiet contemplation, when a mind is allowed to wander as freely as the ship drifts across the water, are what give exploration its gentle, almost hypnotic rhythm. Every sighting of a distant land, every subtle change in the wind or current becomes part of an unfolding story that is as much about perception and understanding as it is about geography. Ultimately, the call of the unknown that drove these explorers is timeless. It is a call to observe carefully, to think deeply, to respect both the world and the limits of one's knowledge. It is a call to wander slowly, to balance curiosity with patience, and to find wonder in the small discoveries as much as in the grand. In following the paths laid out by maps, in stepping into spaces that were uncertain or imagined, explorers became participants in a quiet meditation on the nature of discovery itself. They remind us that to journey is not only to move across space, but to move within thought, imagination, and the gentle unfolding of human understanding. As the mind traces the journeys of these early navigators, it drifts alongside them across oceans and continents, through storms and calm waters, into the quiet spaces where knowledge and imagination meet. The rhythm of their exploration, the slow observation, careful measurement, and reverent contemplation of the unknown, invites the viewer to relax, to reflect, and to drift with the gentle currents of curiosity and wonder. The stories of these explorers, guided by maps, instruments, and intuition, become a meditation on courage, patience, and the enduring human desire to reach beyond the familiar, to step into the unknown, and to bring back not only knowledge but a sense of awe and quiet reverence for the vast, mysterious world we inhabit. Every journey of discovery relies not only on curiosity and courage, but also on the delicate instruments that translate observation into knowledge. Long before the age of satellites and modern technology, explorers depended on tools that were simultaneously precise and poetic, instruments that connected human perception to the vast, mysterious world. The astrolabe, the compass, the sextant, and other devices allowed travelers to measure angles, determine positions, and navigate by the stars, transforming uncertainty into guidance. These tools were extensions of the mind, carefully crafted and thoughtfully used, bridging the known and the unknown. They were not merely practical. They were contemplative instruments, encouraging slow, deliberate engagement with the world. The astrolabe, one of the earliest navigational tools, is particularly remarkable for its elegance and complexity. With its finely engraved circles and movable pointers, it allowed navigators to determine latitude by measuring the position of the sun or stars. Holding an astrolabe in one's hands, it is easy to imagine the quiet focus of an explorer, eyes lifted to the heavens, translating the movements of distant stars into tangible measurements on Earth. Each calculation was a meditation, a rhythm of observation, measurement, and reflection that mirrored the slow unfolding of discovery itself. The astrolabe transformed the vast night sky into a comprehensible map, offering a subtle sense of orientation and reassurance in the midst of the unknown. The compass, with its simple yet profound ability to indicate direction, became another indispensable companion. Though small and unassuming, it embodied the human desire to find a path through uncertainty, to maintain a sense of purpose even when the horizon disappears into fog or storm. A compass does not provide the answers to where one will find land or what dangers lie ahead, but it offers a quiet anchor, a gentle suggestion of orientation that allows the mind to remain calm and focused. With compass in hand, sailors could chart courses across vast, uncharted waters, guided by both the instrument and their own experience, their intuition, and their interpretation of maps. The sextant, appearing later in the history of exploration, allowed for even greater precision, measuring angles between celestial bodies and the horizon to calculate latitude and longitude. With its gleaming brass, careful engravings, and delicate arcs, it is a tool of both science and beauty. Using a sextant requires patience, calm observation, and a gentle steadiness of hand, qualities that mirror the qualities necessary for exploration itself. Each measurement, taken at sunrise or sunset, became part of a larger pattern, slowly revealing the contours of the Earth and the possibilities of new lands. The instrument is almost poetic in its design and function, a bridge between the finite human gaze and the infinite expanse of sky and sea. These tools were complemented by meticulous charts and maps, each layer of observation reinforcing the other. A navigator might observe the stars, measure angles, estimate distances, and then translate all of this into ink on parchment, creating a record that could guide future voyages. The act of mapping was simultaneously practical and reflective, a quiet meditation on the patterns of the world and the passage of time. Every line drawn represented not only geography, but also thought, observation, and human presence in a vast, sometimes overwhelming environment. The interplay of instruments, maps, and careful observation allowed explorers to push the boundaries of the known world, transforming uncertainty into exploration, curiosity into understanding. It is remarkable to consider that these instruments were often used under extreme conditions. On the deck of a ship, rocking gently or violently with the waves, amidst the spray of the sea and the endless horizon, the navigator's instruments demanded focus and delicacy. Each measurement required patience, careful handling, and repeated observation. Yet each success offered reassurance, a quiet sense of orientation, and the thrill of slowly unveiling the unknown. The rhythm of measurement, calculation, and correction became a gentle meditation, a steady heartbeat that mirrored the motion of the ship itself. In this way, tools were not merely functional. They were companions in a contemplative dialogue between human perception and the natural world. Beyond their practical application, these instruments also symbolize the human desire to understand the cosmos, to bring order to the chaos of experience, and to measure what at first seems immeasurable. They represent a bridge between imagination and reality, turning the abstract movement of the stars into concrete guidance for journeys across the earth. They remind us that knowledge is rarely immediate. It is accumulated slowly, measured carefully, and applied thoughtfully. Each observation, each calculation, and each adjustment reinforces a quiet rhythm of discovery, patience, and reflection, a rhythm that continues to resonate through the stories of exploration and cartography. The tools themselves are works of art, their surfaces engraved with delicate lines, their mechanisms balanced with care, their presence a reminder of the beauty inherent in thoughtful observation. They embody the idea that the pursuit of knowledge is not only a practical endeavor, but also an aesthetic one, a meditation on precision, harmony, and the elegance of understanding. To hold an astrolabe, a compass, or a sextant is to connect with the minds of countless explorers, scholars, and navigators who sought to bring clarity to a world filled with uncertainty and mystery. It is also worth noting that the use of these tools required not only technical skill, but also a deep understanding of nature and the elements. Sailors and navigators needed to observe wind patterns, ocean currents, cloud formations, and celestial cycles. Instruments provided guidance, but wisdom and attentiveness were equally essential. This interplay of knowledge, observation, and interpretation reflects the broader rhythm of exploration, the gentle negotiation between human capability and the vastness of the natural world. In this way, tools become more than instruments. They become partners in understanding, enabling a slow, deliberate unfolding of insight, reflection, and wonder. In the quiet contemplation of these instruments, one senses a meditation not only on navigation, but on the human experience of discovery. Each line measured, each star observed, each angle calculated contributes to a rhythm of thought and observation that mirrors the gentle unfolding of the world itself. These tools remind us that exploration is not a frantic rush to conquer or claim, but a patient, careful engagement with reality, a dialogue between perception, imagination, and understanding. They invite the mind to drift, to observe, and to reflect on the interplay between precision and mystery, order and uncertainty. As the night deepens and the mind settles into calm reflection, the instruments of exploration offer more than practical guidance. They offer a gentle meditation on curiosity, patience, and the beauty of observation. The astrolabe, compass, and sextant are not just tools. They are companions on the quiet journey into the unknown, guides that transform uncertainty into rhythm, observation into understanding, and the vast mystery of the world into a contemplative exploration. They remind us that knowledge is both methodical and poetic, that discovery is as much about the journey as the destination, and that even in the vastest expanses, there is a quiet, guiding order waiting to be traced by careful hands and attentive eyes. As maps became more detailed and instruments more precise, there arose a new kind of journey. A journey not only across lands and seas, but through ideas, culture, and the slow accumulation of knowledge. This bridge between exploration and understanding was quieter, more reflective, yet no less profound. It was a time when knowledge gathered from distant voyages, traveler accounts, and early cartographic work began to converge, forming a subtle web of information that could be traced and contemplated. The mind of the observer was invited to wander slowly across these connections, to notice patterns, to consider anomalies, and to sense the delicate tension between certainty and the unknown. Trade routes, previously the realm of practical necessity, became vessels for knowledge and curiosity. Merchants carried not only goods, but stories, rumors, and impressions from far-off lands. When these accounts reached scholars and map-makers, they were translated into lines, symbols, and annotations, slowly filling the gaps left by earlier voyages. Each route traced on a map represents countless footsteps, oars dipping into water, and camel hooves crossing deserts. Yet it also reflects the mind of those who tried to make sense of it all. There is a quiet poetry in this layering of experience and observation, where human perception and movement converge into something almost meditative. The bridge sections of mapping history often reveal contrasts between what was known and what remained uncertain. Some areas of the world were charted with remarkable detail: the coastlines of Europe, the Mediterranean, and parts of Asia, while others remained vague, speculative, or mysterious. Blank spaces on maps are not simply absences. They are invitations, gently coaxing the observer to reflect, imagine, and wonder. Phantom islands, mythical rivers, and unverified lands filled these voids, reminding us that exploration is as much about imagination as it is about measurement. In the quiet contemplation of these spaces, one senses the patience and humility required to acknowledge that the world cannot be fully contained within lines and symbols. This era also introduced the concept of synthesis, the act of combining disparate observations into a cohesive whole. Mapmakers began to cross-reference notes from explorers, travelers, and merchants, comparing reports of distances, landmarks, and natural phenomena. This careful integration of knowledge reflects a deliberate, contemplative practice, requiring not only accuracy, but reflection and interpretation. Each map becomes a meditation on human experience, a record of both observation and thought. The mind following these routes begins to feel a gentle rhythm, moving between certainty and conjecture, between the measured and the imagined. There's also a subtle human story embedded in this bridge of knowledge. Scholars, sailors, and cartographers were often working in isolation, yet their work intersected in surprising ways. A merchant's observation of a distant harbor might inform a mapmaker hundreds of miles away. A celestial calculation from one scholar could correct the position of a coastline on another map. These quiet intersections of knowledge reveal the collaborative, cumulative nature of human understanding. Progress emerges slowly, almost imperceptibly, like the gentle erosion of rock by water, each contribution building upon the last, creating a foundation for the discoveries yet to come. The act of connecting knowledge across regions and cultures also encourages reflection on the fragility of information. Errors, misinterpretations, and gaps are unavoidable, yet they are woven into the maps themselves as silent teachers. Each discrepancy invites the mind to pause, to question, and to contemplate the interplay between observation, imagination, and uncertainty. These pauses create a gentle, reflective rhythm, perfect for drifting into thought, allowing the mind to wander across history, culture, and geography without urgency or pressure. Ultimately, this bridge period in cartography and exploration is less about immediate discovery and more about the quiet unfolding of understanding. It represents a stage where the known and unknown coexist in balance, where maps are as much reflective tools as they are navigational aids. Observing these maps is a meditative experience. One traces lines slowly, considers distances carefully, and lets the mind drift over spaces both filled and empty, sensing the tension and harmony between detail and mystery. It is here, in this calm, contemplative space, that the mind prepares for the deeper dives of exploration and hidden knowledge that follow, attuned to the rhythms of discovery, reflection, and quiet curiosity. By the late Renaissance and early age of exploration, maps have become not only records of known lands, but also repositories of hidden knowledge, a delicate blend of observation, speculation, and secrecy. As explorers traveled farther and instruments became more precise, maps began to reveal patterns and connections that were previously invisible, hints of currents, trade winds, and routes across the oceans. Yet even in this period of advancement, the unknown persisted, and mapmakers deliberately left gaps, obscure symbols, or enigmatic annotations that whispered of mysteries not yet fully understood. These maps were as much about guiding the mind as guiding the ship, quietly inviting contemplation, reflection, and imagination. To trace these lines is to step into a world where the practical, the poetic, and the secretive converge, forming a delicate dance between knowledge and mystery. Some of the most intriguing aspects of maps from this period are the hidden messages embedded within them. Certain charts contained subtle clues known only to those with the proper training, access, or context. These clues might indicate safe harbors, valuable trade routes, or locations of rare resources, while others could serve as warnings of danger or uncharted territory. In an era when travel was perilous, information could be as valuable as gold, and the careful concealment of knowledge became a quiet strategy, encoded in symbols, cryptic annotations, and selective accuracy. For the modern observer, these hidden layers invite a slower, more deliberate reading, encouraging the mind to drift across details, consider possibilities, and imagine the motivations behind each choice of line, curve, and marking. Beyond practical guidance, maps from this era were also reflective of broader worldviews. The contours of continents, the depiction of seas, and the placement of islands often carried cultural, religious, or philosophical significance. Some maps positioned sacred sites, celestial alignments, or cosmological references alongside geographical features, subtly merging the material and spiritual. Mountains could represent both physical obstacles and symbolic journeys. Rivers might indicate trade, sustenance, and connection, as well as a flow of energy or knowledge. The deliberate inclusion of these elements invites viewers to consider the larger meaning behind the maps, transforming them into quiet meditations on humanity's place in the cosmos and on the interconnection of observation, imagination, and wisdom. Trade and exploration fueled the growth of these maps in both detail and mystery. Merchants, navigators, and scholars brought information from distant lands, gradually filling in previously blank areas, while simultaneously introducing new uncertainties and inconsistencies. Islands that appeared on one account might vanish on the next. Coastlines could shift depending on the observer's perspective or the season. These maps were living documents, constantly revised, contested, and interpreted, reflecting the ongoing negotiation between observation and imagination. To trace these lines is to sense the slow, patient accumulation of knowledge and the subtle hum of curiosity and caution that guided human understanding for centuries. The hidden knowledge preserved in maps also reflects the human fascination with patterns, symmetry, and proportion. Cartographers of this period were acutely aware of scale, distance, and orientation, yet they often deliberately adjusted or exaggerated certain features to convey priority, significance, or caution. A mountain might loom larger than reality, a river might be elongated, an island might appear more prominent than its actual size. These choices were not mistakes. They were a language of emphasis, a way to communicate subtleties about importance, danger, or value. Observing these maps is a gentle exercise in patience and perception, teaching the viewer to notice both what is present and what is intentionally obscured, to reflect on why certain details are highlighted while others remain uncertain. Even as the world became increasingly mapped, there was still room for imagination. Phantom islands continued to appear, uncertain coastlines were traced, and legends were preserved alongside verified knowledge. Some maps contained marginal notes, often written in delicate script, hinting at voyages, discoveries, or warnings. These annotations create a rhythm of reading, where the mind alternates between observation, speculation, and reflection. It is in these quiet moments, examining the careful placement of a note or the shadow of an island, that the meditative quality of early cartography becomes most apparent. The mind drifts gently across space and time, sensing the dialogue between the past and present, between the known and the unknown. The synthesis of hidden knowledge and exploration also encouraged collaboration and quiet competition among mapmakers. Copies of maps were shared carefully, sometimes altered to include or obscure details, reflecting both pride and secrecy. Scholars and navigators compared accounts, checked measurements, and debated discrepancies, creating a living network of information that spanned continents. Each map became a node in a larger web of understanding, a record of collective effort, ingenuity, and careful observation. The calm rhythm of this process mirrors the rhythm of exploration itself, a patient, deliberate, and reflective engagement with the world. Importantly, these maps remind us that knowledge is layered. The visible lines and coastlines represent observation. The subtle notations, symbols, and omissions represent interpretation, speculation, and caution. Together, they create a dialogue between the immediate and the hidden, between fact and mystery, between certainty and curiosity. To study these maps is to engage in a gentle exercise of reflection, tracing the paths of explorers, contemplating the intentions of cartographers, and sensing the quiet rhythms of discovery. Each line drawn, each annotation made, carries with it a story, a hint, or a question, inviting the mind to linger, wander, and imagine. In quiet contemplation, one begins to perceive the subtle poetry of these maps. They are not merely tools for navigation or records of land. They are meditative objects, inviting the viewer to slow the mind, to drift through history, and to experience the persistent human curiosity that guided centuries of exploration. The hidden knowledge encoded within their lines, symbols, and margins encourages a reflective, patient engagement, transforming observation into imagination and information into quiet wonder. As the mind traces the coastlines, annotations, and shadowy symbols, it drifts along a gentle continuum between reality and possibility. The maps of this period are quiet teachers, demonstrating that exploration is not only physical, but intellectual and imaginative, a delicate interplay of observation, reflection, and curiosity. In their hidden knowledge, they invite the mind to rest, to wander, and to marvel at the slow unfolding of understanding across centuries. Here, in these spaces between the known and the unknown, the rhythm of discovery becomes almost hypnotic, guiding the observer through history, geography, and the subtle mysteries that continue to captivate the human imagination. As maps became more detailed and exploration more widespread, there arose a subtle but profound tension between knowledge that was recorded and knowledge that remained deliberately hidden. Some information was kept secret, encoded in symbols, annotations, or marginalia, accessible only to those who were educated, initiated, or entrusted with particular knowledge. These hidden layers reflect a world in which information was power, where understanding the movements of the sea, the location of safe harbors, or the routes of trade could determine wealth, survival, and influence. At the same time, secrecy was balanced with curiosity, inviting careful observers to linger, to notice, and to consider the choices made by mapmakers and what they revealed and what they concealed. Many of these hidden elements were subtle, almost imperceptible. A faintly drawn line might indicate a hidden passage or a safer route through treacherous waters. A small symbol could represent a resource-rich area, while a careful annotation might warn of storms, pirates, or hostile territories. To the casual observer, these features might pass unnoticed, but to the trained eye, they spoke volumes. The mind is invited to move slowly across the page, noticing patterns and irregularities, reflecting on their meaning, and sensing the careful hand of the mapmaker who sought to communicate while also protecting knowledge. This quiet tension between revealing and concealing creates a rhythm of curiosity and contemplation, perfectly suited to reflective observation. Secrecy in maps was often intertwined with cultural and political considerations. Royal cartographers, monastic scholars, and experienced navigators all had reasons to protect certain details, whether for economic advantage, strategic purposes, or to preserve sacred knowledge. In some cases, maps included deliberate errors or distortions to mislead potential rivals, ensuring that valuable information remained controlled. Yet these intentional omissions or alterations also invite a slow, reflective engagement from the modern viewer, a meditation on the choices humans make when balancing curiosity, ethics, and the protection of knowledge. To follow these subtle hints is to practice patience and discernment, tracing the delicate line between what is known and what is meant to remain hidden. There's also a philosophical dimension to hidden knowledge on maps. Many of these annotations, symbols, and subtle lines reflect a worldview in which understanding is layered and multidimensional. Geography was not simply about land and sea. It was about relationships, influence, resources, and the flow of power and culture. By encoding some knowledge, mapmakers acknowledged the complexity of the world and the limits of human comprehension. Each hidden feature becomes an invitation to think slowly, to trace connections across time and space, and to recognize that understanding is rarely absolute. The interplay between revealed and concealed information fosters a gentle awareness of curiosity, patience, and humility. Some maps went further, incorporating mystical, astrological, or spiritual elements into their designs. Celestial alignments, sacred sites, and geometric patterns could subtly communicate insights about the world, encoded for those who knew how to interpret them. These features remind us that hidden knowledge is not always practical in nature. Sometimes it is reflective, contemplative, or symbolic. To observe these maps is to participate in a quiet meditation on the interplay between the physical and metaphysical, between measurement and imagination, between what can be known and what can only be intuited. In this space, maps become more than guides. They are companions for thought, curiosity, and gentle reflection. The use of hidden knowledge also created a sense of dialogue between generations. Explorers, mapmakers, and scholars often worked across decades or centuries, adding to, interpreting, or preserving information in subtle ways. Symbols placed on one map might echo in another, annotations might be expanded or clarified, and routes might be revised based on new observations. By the time the age of exploration reached its height, maps had evolved into not just guides for sailors, but repositories of collective human understanding, repositories that held knowledge, mystery, and subtle warnings within their delicate lines. The maps of this era are remarkable not only for their geographic accuracy, but for the care, artistry, and intelligence embedded within every symbol, curve, and annotation. Each chart was a meditation on the known and unknown, a careful attempt to order the vast and sometimes chaotic world while simultaneously acknowledging that the unknown would always remain. To follow these maps is to step into a quiet dialogue with the past, tracing the paths of explorers and mapmakers, and observing the slow accumulation of wisdom, observation, and reflection. One of the most striking features of these maps is their meticulous attention to detail. Coastlines are traced with careful precision, bays and harbors marked with symbols denoting depth, hazards, or navigability. Rivers wind with a gentle fluidity, Mountains rise in careful proportion, and forests are rendered with almost poetic attention. Yet for all their accuracy, these maps also preserve spaces of uncertainty. Blank regions, faint lines, and mysterious symbols hint at areas unexplored or information deliberately hidden. This balance between precision and mystery is what gives these maps their quiet power, drawing the observer into a gentle rhythm of exploration and reflection. Each glance invites the mind to linger, to consider not only what is represented, but also what remains elusive. The hidden knowledge contained in these maps is as much about practical guidance as it is about interpretation. Symbols might indicate trade routes, safe passages, or dangerous waters. Annotations could warn of pirates, storms, or challenging currents. In some cases, cartographers deliberately encoded information so that only those with proper training, insight, or authority could fully understand it. This subtle secrecy reflects a world in which information was precious, a resource to be guarded carefully. Yet it also serves as an invitation to the thoughtful observer to engage slowly and attentively, to notice the small details, to trace patterns, and to consider the layered intentions behind every line and symbol. Maps from this period also reflect the broader cultural, philosophical, and spiritual worldview of their creators. Mountains, rivers, and desert were not merely geographic features. They could represent obstacles, journeys, or channels of connection. Celestial symbols, sacred sites, and geometric alignments were sometimes incorporated, reflecting a worldview that connected earthly exploration with the heavens above. To observe these maps is to enter a contemplative space, to consider the human desire to understand not only the physical world, but its deeper rhythms and harmonies. They are not only tools of navigation, but instruments of reflection, inviting the mind to wander gently along both tangible and intangible lines. The age of exploration was also a period of intense collaboration and quiet competition. Mapmakers, scholars, navigators, and travelers shared information, cross-referenced accounts, and debated the accuracy of reports. Each map becomes a point of connection, a reflection of collective human effort, curiosity, and ingenuity. The subtle differences between maps, the corrections made over time, and the annotations added in margins all speak of a slow accumulation of understanding, a patient layering of observation upon observation. To study these maps is to follow a centuries-long dialogue, to trace the echoes of explorers' footsteps and the careful hand of cartographers who worked to preserve knowledge with humility and care. Phantom islands, disputed coastlines, and hidden passages continue to appear on maps even as exploration expanded. These elements remind us that knowledge is always provisional, always subject to revision, and that mystery remains an essential part of understanding the world. Observing these features, the mind can wander into contemplation, sensing the delicate interplay between certainty and conjecture, between what is measured and what is imagined. The presence of these enigmas invites patience and quiet curiosity, encouraging a gentle meditation on the nature of discovery, the impermanence of knowledge, and the ongoing dialogue between human perception and the natural world. Instruments played a central role in this process, linking observation to cartographic representation. The astrolabe, sextant, compass, and other devices allowed navigators to measure, calculate, and translate their experiences into charts with remarkable accuracy. Yet these instruments were more than technical tools. They were extensions of human attention and curiosity. Each measurement required focus, patience, and reflection, each observation a moment of quiet contemplation, a rhythm that harmonized with the motion of the ship, the sweep of the stars, and the slow unfolding of the voyage. In this way, instruments were companions in both practical and meditative senses, connecting human perception to the vast, intricate, and sometimes mysterious world. The act of creating these maps was itself contemplative, a careful balancing of precision, interpretation, and imagination. Cartographers drew from multiple sources: explorers' journals, merchant reports, previous maps and oral traditions. They made decisions about what to include, what to exaggerate, and what to conceal, crafting documents that were at once functional, artistic, and symbolic. Each map is therefore a reflection of human thought, a meditation on what it means to observe, interpret, and preserve knowledge. Following the lines and symbols becomes a gentle exercise in awareness, patience, and reflection, allowing the mind to drift across centuries of human curiosity and exploration. Ultimately, the maps of the age of exploration invite a slow, immersive contemplation. They are not simply records of land and sea. They are meditative objects, guiding the mind through the delicate tension between knowledge and mystery. Each coastline traced, each symbol noted, and each annotation included represents not only observation, but intention, curiosity, and reflection. As one follows the contours of these maps, the rhythm of exploration, patient, deliberate, and thoughtful, unfolds gently, allowing the mind to drift along with the explorers, tracing the subtle threads that connect known lands to unknown horizons, fact to speculation, and reality to imagination. In the quiet study of these maps, one senses a dialogue between past and present, between human curiosity and the vastness of the world. The hidden knowledge, careful measurements, and symbolic annotations invite the mind to linger, to consider the subtle interplay of precision and mystery, and to embrace the slow, reflective unfolding of understanding. These maps are more than navigational tools. They're companions for thought, gentle guides for contemplation, and invitations to experience the profound beauty of discovery in a calm and meditative way. As exploration advanced and maps became increasingly detailed, there emerged a subtler form of journey, a journey not across new lands, but through the layers of knowledge and understanding that have been carefully accumulated over centuries. This period represents a quiet bridge between discovery and reflection, a time when the practical observations of explorers and navigators began to be synthesized with scholarly interpretation, philosophical thought, and careful record-keeping. It was an era in which maps were no longer simply tools for navigation, but contemplative instruments, inviting the mind to wander slowly across familiar coasts and uncharted regions alike. The observer could drift from precise measurements to imagined spaces, from recorded reality to the mysteries that persisted in blank margins, and in doing so, experience the gentle rhythm of reflection and curiosity. During this period, the attention of cartographers and scholars often turned toward consolidation and synthesis. Information from countless voyages, reports, and oral accounts was compared, cross-referenced, and refined, slowly transforming fragmented knowledge into coherent patterns. The process was deliberate and meticulous. Measurements were verified, observations were weighed, and contradictions were reconciled wherever possible. Yet even as maps became more consistent, they still preserved the space for ambiguity, subtle annotations, and hidden knowledge, acknowledging that some mysteries of the world were meant to remain elusive. The presence of these uncertainties allowed the mind to drift in contemplation, finding calm and fascination in the gentle interplay between what was known and what remained uncertain. Trade routes, too, played a subtle role in this synthesis of knowledge. Merchants' logs and travelers' journals provided more than information about goods and markets. They contained observations of distant coasts, currents, winds, and cultures. Scholars and map-makers drew from these records to refine maps, often incorporating details that had never been recorded before. The interaction between commerce and exploration created a network of knowledge that spanned continents, blending practical guidance with contemplative reflection. Following these routes on maps, one can imagine the slow rhythm of ships crossing oceans, caravans traversing deserts, and the quiet accumulation of human experience encoded in each line and notation. This bridge period also emphasizes the delicate balance between certainty and speculation. Even as measurements became more precise and instruments more reliable, explorers and cartographers acknowledged the limits of their understanding. Some coastlines remained vague, islands appeared inconsistently, and certain regions were marked with cautionary symbols. These deliberate choices invite the mind to pause and consider the broader picture. That knowledge is always provisional, that exploration is as much about patience and observation as it is about discovery, and that the unknown is not a threat, but a space for imagination and reflection. In this quiet tension lies the meditative quality of early modern cartography, a rhythm that unfolds slowly, encouraging thoughtful observation and gentle curiosity. Moreover, the synthesis of information during this period often involves subtle storytelling. Maps conveyed not only geographic facts, but also human experience. The dangers of storms, the richness of distant lands, and the extraordinary diversity of cultures encountered. Marginal notes, illustrations, and symbols offered quiet commentary, hinting at the experiences of travelers and the perspectives of those who charted the world. Each map becomes a layered narrative, blending observation, interpretation, and imagination into a contemplative whole. The mind following these lines drifts along with the explorer's journeys, sensing the rhythm of discovery and reflection, the pulse of curiosity that guided centuries of human exploration. Collaboration played a central role as well. Mapmakers, scholars, navigators, and merchants often worked across time and space, contributing knowledge, revising errors, and expanding the collective understanding of the world. A single map could reflect decades of effort, incorporating measurements, stories, and insights from countless individuals. This ongoing dialogue between observers across generations fosters a sense of continuity and quiet engagement. As the mind traces the connections, notes the subtle changes, and senses the deliberate care invested in each line, annotation, and symbol. The process becomes a gentle meditation on the accumulation of human understanding, patience, and the enduring rhythm of curiosity. Ultimately, this bridge period reminds us that exploration is not always about immediate discovery. Sometimes it is about reflection, synthesis, and careful consideration of what has been observed, recorded, and transmitted. The maps of this era are contemplative guides, inviting the observer to move slowly, notice details, consider patterns, and drift across spaces both known and unknown. In this quiet engagement, the mind develops a rhythm of curiosity and reflection, moving seamlessly between precision and imagination, reality and possibility, measurement and wonder. In tracing these maps and considering the synthesis of knowledge they represent, one experiences a gentle immersion into the layered world of early exploration. Observers are invited to follow the rhythms of thought and observation, to move slowly across coasts, rivers, and islands, and to sense the delicate interplay between what is known and what remains hidden. This period, more reflective than adventurous, prepares the mind to appreciate the deeper mysteries of the world, encouraging a calm, meditative engagement with maps, voyages, and the subtle accumulation of human understanding. As the age of exploration matured and the synthesis of knowledge progressed, maps began to reveal not only physical geography, but the subtle undercurrents of human ambition, curiosity, and imagination. Each chart, each carefully drawn coastline, river, and mountain became a quiet testament to the patient accumulation of experience and observation, a reflection of centuries of human endeavor to understand the world. Yet even as the known world expanded, there remained spaces of uncertainty, places where the line between fact and speculation blurred. These unknown regions, often left deliberately vague or annotated with cryptic symbols, invite the mind to wander, creating a meditative space in which curiosity and reflection flow gently, much like the slow rhythm of a ship drifting across calm waters. During this period, the interplay between exploration, trade, and scholarship became increasingly complex. Knowledge gathered on distant voyages was recorded not only in maps, but in logs, journals, and letters, forming a network of information that spanned continents. Cartographers carefully sifted through these records, reconciling discrepancies, noting anomalies, and occasionally preserving certain secrets for strategic, economic, or cultural reasons. In doing so, they created maps that were as much intellectual and reflective tools as they were navigational aids. Observing these maps, one senses the layers of human thought, the interplay of accuracy and interpretation, and the quiet rhythm of contemplation that guided their creation. The presence of hidden or encoded knowledge on maps became more sophisticated during this era. Symbols, annotations, and subtle distortions were employed not to deceive out of malice, but to safeguard information, to mark regions of interest, or to communicate nuanced details to those trained to interpret them. A carefully drawn bay might indicate a safe harbor. A small mark could denote a source of fresh water, or a slightly exaggerated coastline could warn of hidden reefs. These elements encourage a slow, reflective engagement with the map, inviting the observer to consider not just what is drawn, but why it was drawn in a particular way. Each subtle mark becomes a meditation on intention, observation, and human perception, a quiet dialogue between the mapmaker and the user. In addition to geographic and practical details, many maps of this period carried philosophical and cultural significance. Mountains, rivers, deserts, and forests were more than topographical features. They represented obstacles, pathways, and connections. Some maps incorporated celestial alignments, sacred sites, or cosmological references, intertwining the material and the symbolic. The act of observing these maps, tracing coastlines, noting symbols, and interpreting annotations, becomes a gentle meditation on the human desire to understand not only the physical world, but the deeper relationships that shape it. This layered complexity transforms maps into contemplative instruments, guiding the mind through both observable reality and the realms of imagination and reflection. Trade routes continued to be a subtle yet powerful force in the refinement of knowledge. The movement of goods, people, and ideas provided maps with essential information, often including details that were impossible to obtain from a single voyage. Merchants' observations of currents, winds, and geography were integrated into cartographic records, creating networks of understanding that connected distant lands. This gradual accumulation of knowledge, built upon countless small observations and careful syntheses, reflects the patient, meditative rhythm of early exploration. Following these routes on maps, the mind drifts along the paths of ships and caravans, sensing the slow unfolding of human understanding across vast distances and through centuries of experience. The maps of this era also preserve a quiet tension between accuracy and imagination. Phantom islands, speculative coastlines, and areas left deliberately blank serve as reminders that even the most meticulous observation cannot capture the entirety of the world. These ambiguities invite reflective engagement, allowing the observer to imagine possibilities, question assumptions, and explore the unknown. The spaces of uncertainty become almost poetic, a gentle counterbalance to the precise lines and detailed annotations, fostering a contemplative rhythm that mirrors the natural ebb and flow of curiosity and understanding. Instrumentation remains central to the creation of these detailed maps. The astrolabe, sextant, compass, and other navigational tools allowed explorers to measure and interpret their surroundings with increasing precision. Yet the use of these instruments was more than technical. It was contemplative. Each measurement required focus, patience, and reflection, a quiet rhythm of observation that harmonized with the motion of the ship, the passage of the stars, and the slow unfolding of the journey. In this way, tools became companions in both practical navigation and meditative observation, bridging the gap between human perception and the vast, intricate, and mysterious world. Collaboration across generations and continents further enriched the maps of this period. Cartographers, explorers, and scholars contributed knowledge incrementally, revising, refining, and building upon one another's work. Each map embodies decades of effort, layered with observations, corrections, and interpretations. This quiet intergenerational dialogue reflects the cumulative nature of human understanding, offering a rhythm of continuity and reflection that mirrors the gradual accumulation of knowledge itself. Observers following these maps can trace these subtle connections, sensing the patience, care, and curiosity that underlie every line, symbol, and annotation. Ultimately, the maps of this era invite the observer into a space of calm reflection. They are not simply tools for navigation. They are meditative objects, encouraging the mind to move slowly, to notice details, and to linger in the spaces between the known and unknown. Each coastline traced, each subtle annotation, each mysterious symbol becomes part of a quiet narrative about discovery, patience, and the enduring human fascination with the unknown. In tracing these maps, the mind drifts across time and space, exploring both the world as it is and as it is imagined, finding a gentle rhythm in the interplay between observation, interpretation, and wonder. The hidden and layered knowledge preserved in these maps reminds us that exploration is as much intellectual and contemplative as it is physical. It is a patient journey, a careful engagement with reality and imagination, a dialogue between what is visible and what remains uncertain. Observing and following these maps allows the mind to participate in a centuries-long meditation on curiosity, observation, and understanding, offering a sense of calm and fascination that continues to resonate even today. Here, in the gentle lines, symbols, and annotations of these maps, one finds a rhythm of reflection, a quiet encouragement to drift slowly through the history of exploration, and a meditative space where the known and unknown coexist harmoniously. As the age of exploration gradually gave way to a more comprehensive understanding of the world, maps and charts began to take on an even more reflective role. The process of discovery was no longer solely about charting unknown lands or seas. It was about synthesizing centuries of observation, knowledge, and speculation into a coherent, contemplative framework. This period represents a gentle bridge between the exhilaration of early exploration and the deep reflection on what it all meant, geographically, culturally, and philosophically. The mind, following the contours of coastlines, the flow of rivers, and the subtle markings of mapmakers, drifts slowly, tracing not only the physical routes of explorers, but also the quiet paths of human curiosity and insight. Maps during this period became repositories of layered knowledge, combining precise measurements with symbolic annotations, cryptic notes, and even artistic flourishes. Mountains might be exaggerated to indicate danger or importance, islands rendered faintly to reflect uncertainty, and coastlines carefully adjusted to accommodate multiple, sometimes conflicting, accounts. Each decision reflects a deliberate balance between fact and interpretation, inviting the observer to pause and reflect on the layers of human understanding embedded within the page. Observing these maps is a gentle exercise in patience, encouraging the mind to notice subtle details, consider patterns, and appreciate the care with which knowledge was preserved and communicated. Trade and commerce continued to shape maps in profound ways. Merchants' observations and travelers' logs contributed essential information about coastlines, currents, winds, and resources. These details were integrated with scholarly interpretations, producing maps that were as much intellectual works as navigational tools. Following the paths traced on these charts, the mind drifts along ancient trade routes, imagining the slow rhythm of caravans across deserts, ships gliding across oceans, and the quiet accumulation of experience and knowledge. In this contemplative engagement, exploration becomes not a rush to discover, but a patient, meditative journey, allowing curiosity and reflection to unfold naturally. The tension between known and unknown remains a defining feature of this period. Blank spaces, faint lines, and cryptic annotations invite speculation and wonder, encouraging the observer to contemplate what lies beyond the charted regions. Phantom islands and uncertain coastlines hint at human imagination, caution, and the limits of observation, creating a rhythm of curiosity that is both gentle and persistent. The mind moves slowly through these spaces, oscillating between fact and conjecture, observation and imagination, learning to appreciate the subtle interplay between certainty and mystery. In this way, maps act as meditative guides, shaping a reflective exploration that is as much about the mind as it is about the world. Scholarly collaboration became increasingly important in this era. Cartographers, explorers, and navigators contributed knowledge incrementally, cross-referencing reports, correcting errors, and expanding the collective understanding of the world. Each map embodies decades of careful observation and synthesis, a quiet record of patience, reflection, and human ingenuity. Following these lines allows the mind to engage in a centuries-long dialogue, tracing the interplay between accuracy, interpretation, and imagination. The observer senses the deliberate care invested in each symbol, annotation, and contour, fostering a gentle rhythm of awareness and contemplation. Hidden knowledge and subtle encoding continued to play a vital role. Maps contained symbols and annotations that were intended for trained observers, providing guidance, warnings, or insights while simultaneously concealing critical information. These subtle elements invite a slow, reflective engagement, requiring the mind to move attentively, to notice patterns, and to consider the intentions of those who crafted them. This quiet interplay between revelation and concealment mirrors the broader human experience of discovery, an interplay between observation, interpretation, and imagination that is both meditative and endlessly fascinating. The maps of this period also encourage reflection on the human desire to find patterns and meaning in the world. They reveal not only geography, but philosophy, culture, and spiritual symbolism. Rivers, mountains, and coastlines are interwoven with subtle suggestions about human experience, trade, influence, and the flow of ideas. Observing these details invites the mind to move slowly, connecting what is seen with what is imagined, tracing relationships across time, space, and culture. In this gentle engagement, the rhythm of discovery is internalized, allowing curiosity, reflection, and wonder to coexist peacefully. Ultimately, this bridge period serves as a quiet meditation on the nature of knowledge itself. It emphasizes synthesis, reflection, and the gentle balance between observation and imagination. Maps are no longer just instruments of navigation. They are meditative tools, guiding the mind through centuries of exploration, observation, and cultural exchange. Following their lines, symbols, and annotations allows the observer to drift through history, sensing the careful accumulation of human understanding, the mysteries that remain, and a gentle rhythm of discovery that continues to inspire curiosity and contemplation. In tracing these charts, the mind is invited to slow down, to linger on details, and to reflect on both what is revealed and what is intentionally left unseen. This reflective engagement fosters a calm, immersive experience, one in which maps become guides not only across the physical world, but through the layered dimensions of human thought, curiosity, and imagination. It is a quiet, contemplative space where the observer can wander freely, appreciating the delicate interplay of knowledge, mystery, and reflection that defines the legacy of early exploration. As the study of maps and exploration deepened, attention naturally turned to the extraordinary human capacity to encode, preserve, and interpret knowledge across generations. This period is defined not only by the expansion of geographic understanding, but also by the remarkable layering of observation, imagination, and interpretation that transforms maps from practical tools into profound repositories of insight. Each chart, annotation, and symbol is a quiet testament to centuries of human curiosity, reflection, and the persistent desire to understand both the world and our place within it. To follow these maps is to embark upon a contemplative journey through space, time, and thought, tracing the deliberate rhythms of exploration and the subtle interplay between what is known and what remains hidden. Maps from this era reveal a delicate tension between meticulous observation and imaginative speculation. Coastlines, rivers, and mountain ranges were often traced with remarkable precision. Yet phantom islands, speculative regions, and faint annotations remained, reflecting the boundaries of contemporary knowledge. These elements are not errors but invitations, gentle prompts to the mind to wander, to consider possibilities, and to dwell in the liminal space between certainty and conjecture. Observing the faint contours of an uncertain coastline or the subtle shading of a remote island encourages a reflective engagement, a meditative exploration in which the rhythm of curiosity unfolds slowly and patiently, like a gentle tide moving across an ancient shore. The hidden knowledge embedded in these maps was sometimes practical, sometimes philosophical, and sometimes symbolic. Trade routes, harbors, and dangerous waters were often encoded in subtle symbols, accessible only to those trained to interpret them. At the same time, maps might incorporate spiritual, cosmological, or cultural references, alignments with celestial phenomena, sacred sites, or philosophical principles that reflected a broader worldview. These multiple layers of meaning allow the observer to drift across dimensions of thought, moving from the tangible to the conceptual, from the measured to the imagined, and to appreciate the contemplative depth that these maps embody. Exploration and cartography were inherently collaborative processes, reflecting centuries of accumulated human effort. Sailors, merchants, navigators, and scholars contributed observations and insights, while cartographers synthesized, refined, and preserved them in a coherent form. Each map represents the work of countless individuals, a delicate network of knowledge built slowly and deliberately. Following these maps allows the mind to participate in this extended dialogue, tracing the accumulation of insight, the subtle corrections of errors, and the layering of interpretation across time and space. The act of observing becomes an immersive meditation, a slow tracing of human curiosity and perseverance. The presence of ambiguity and uncertainty on these maps is particularly important. Blank spaces, faded regions, and cryptic symbols serve not only to reflect the limits of contemporary understanding, but also to create a contemplative rhythm for the observer. The mind moves gently between clarity and obscurity, engaging with the known while imagining what lies beyond. Phantom islands, elusive coastlines, and faintly annotated passages encourage reflection on the nature of discovery itself. That exploration is never absolute, that knowledge is provisional, and that curiosity is an enduring, guiding force. This interplay between observation and imagination, between fact and possibility, creates a quiet, hypnotic rhythm that mirrors the mental journey of both the explorer and the observer. The refinement of instruments during this period further enhanced the depth and subtlety of mapping. The sextant, compass, astrolabe, and other tools allowed navigators to take precise measurements, calculate positions, and translate experiences into charts with remarkable accuracy. Yet the use of these instruments was not purely mechanical. It was contemplative. Each observation required focus, patience, and reflection, harmonizing with the movement of the ship, the passage of the stars, and the gentle unfolding of time. Instruments became extensions of human perception, allowing explorers to engage both practically and meditatively with the world, transforming every measurement into an act of quiet, deliberate attention. Trade and cultural exchange continued to shape maps in subtle and profound ways. Observations from distant lands, recorded in merchants' logs or travelers' journals, enriched the collective knowledge, often filling in gaps that no single voyage could bridge. These contributions created a network of understanding that spanned continents, linking human experience across vast distances. The mind tracing these routes drifts with the rhythm of caravans, ships, and explorers, sensing the slow, steady accumulation of knowledge over decades and centuries. Each line, symbol, and notation becomes a gentle guide, a reflection of human curiosity and reflection in motion. Maps also became reflective instruments of storytelling. Beyond their geographic accuracy, they preserve narratives of human experience, from encounters with distant cultures to the hazards of uncharted waters. Marginal notes, subtle illustrations, and careful annotations captured lessons, observations, and interpretations that would otherwise be lost to time. Each map becomes a layered narrative, a quiet meditation on human endeavor, patience, and imagination. Observing these charts is an immersive experience in which the mind drifts across the contours of history, geography, and human thought, sensing the deliberate rhythm of knowledge unfolding. The integration of hidden knowledge, speculative elements, and practical observations creates a subtle, hypnotic cadence for the observer. Each journey across a coastline, each tracing of a river, each examination of a cryptic annotation invites slow, deliberate engagement. The mind is encouraged to linger, to reflect, and to move thoughtfully between the known and the unknown. This rhythm mirrors the broader patterns of exploration, in which observation, interpretation, and imagination are interwoven, producing a calm, meditative experience that transcends mere geographic study. Ultimately, these maps are more than records of the world. They are contemplative companions. They allow the observer to drift through time and space, to experience the slow accumulation of knowledge, the deliberate preservation of hidden insights, and the subtle interplay of observation and imagination. The presence of mystery, ambiguity, and speculative elements creates a gentle tension that sustains curiosity while promoting reflection. In following the lines, symbols, and annotations, one participates in a centuries-long meditation on human understanding, discovery, and the quiet, enduring rhythm of exploration. Maps from this period are quiet teachers, demonstrating that the pursuit of knowledge is as much about patience, reflection, and imagination as it is about measurement and observation. They invite the mind to slow down, to linger over details, and to drift along the delicate pathways of curiosity and contemplation. In these meditative engagements, the observer experiences the calm and immersive beauty of human exploration, a rhythmic journey through geography, culture, and thought. The interplay between the known and unknown, the revealed and hidden, produces a serene, reflective experience, an invitation to drift gently through history, wonder, and discovery, guided by the careful hands of explorers and cartographers who understood the quiet power of patience, curiosity, and observation. As the journey through ancient maps and hidden knowledge draws to a close, we find ourselves floating gently over the quiet landscapes of imagination and memory. The world of explorers, scholars, and mapmakers unfolds not only as a record of discoveries, but as a reflection of human curiosity itself, a testament to our longing to understand what lies beyond the visible horizon. Each line drawn, each symbol etched, and each coastline recorded carries the echo of hands guided by wonder, by a desire to make sense of the vast, often intimidating world around them. Even when knowledge was incomplete, even when mysteries remained, there was a grace in the attempt, a quiet poetry in the act of seeking. We drift over the pale parchment of centuries, imagining the soft candlelight in rooms where maps were studied, where mariners traced routes with careful fingers, and where unknown continents and phantom islands danced in the minds of those who dared to think beyond the familiar. There's a serenity in these scenes, a calm rhythm to the slow unfolding of human thought and ingenuity. The maps themselves, while serving practical purposes, were also portals into a world of dreams, a silent, enduring invitation to wander, to question, to imagine. They remind us that exploration was never only about land or sea. It was about the human heart's capacity to wonder and the mind's need to map the unseen. Even today, as we gaze at satellite imagery and precise charts, the charm of ancient maps persists, a whisper from the past reminding us that the world is always larger than we perceive. The anomalies, the mysterious symbols, the unexpected coastlines, they all speak of a time when knowledge and mystery were entwined, when curiosity itself was the greatest compass. And in that quiet intertwining of fact and speculation, of known and unknown, we find a soothing rhythm for reflection. There is comfort in knowing that humans have always been drawn to the unknown, that our ancestors wandered with the same mix of caution and awe that we carry in our own imaginations. Lying alongside these reflections, one can almost feel the gentle rocking of a ship on calm seas, or the stillness of a desert under starlit skies, where every line of a map becomes a pathway not only across geography, but across time and memory. The stories embedded within these maps, the secrets encoded in their margins, invite a slow, meditative exploration, allowing the mind to drift gently, effortlessly, between curiosity and reverie. There is no urgency here, no need for resolution, only the quiet satisfaction of tracing the paths that others once traced, of imagining the journeys they might have taken, and of feeling the continuity of human wonder through the ages. As the night deepens, one can linger in this space between history and imagination, letting the contours of unknown lands and forgotten routes soften the mind, creating a gentle lull. The legacy of ancient maps and the explorers who followed them is not merely in the information they preserved, but in the invitation they extend to keep asking, to keep wandering, and to find solace in the quiet act of discovery. It is a reminder that even when the world feels vast, even when mysteries remain, there is beauty in the pursuit, a comfort in curiosity, and an enduring calm in knowing that the unknown has always been a companion to the human spirit. And so, we close our journey with a deep, reflective breath, leaving behind the tangible and intangible lines traced across centuries. We carry with us a sense of gentle wonder, a soft awareness that exploration, whether across oceans, deserts, or the boundless terrain of the mind, is an enduring, peaceful act. As the maps fade from view, the mysteries linger in the quiet corners of thought, inviting the listener to drift, to dream, and to sleep among the echoes of ancient journeys, where curiosity and calm exist together, perfectly in balance.